everybody is protecting themselves from everybody who is also protecting themselves, and then getting upset at the fact that they are showing up as a half version of themselves and only attracting people that can meet them halfway. Because when you're not showing up as the fullest version of who you are, you will never meet the people that have the capacity to meet you. Honestly, I don't think that this is something that will ever be perfectly solved, because at the end of the day, we all have protective mechanisms, and our subconscious programming, our survival responses that are meant to keep us safe, trump everything. And I feel like until you have an identity crisis, can you really pinpoint your protective mechanisms that aren't actually you. They are just what you learned to do in order to feel safe. However, if I could give you some advice on attracting people that are really meant to be in your life, it's to say the things that you want to say. Because when you say exactly how you feel to the people in your life, it weeds out the people that don't want to be there. If you've ever looked at someone and you're like, wow, I'm so magnetized to them, it's probably because they were being completely themselves and they were not worried about how they were perceived, or worried about how what they were saying was going to come off, and they're not preemptively explaining themselves because they're afraid of rejection. And if you have to do that with people in your life, they are not meant to be there. I need to give a disclaimer, because when you start to do this, people drop like flies left and right. I swear. In my life, I've had people, when I've truly shown myself and gotten vulnerable, that have left. Like the most important people in my life, they left. But it's because from the get-go, I learned these mechanisms to keep myself safe depending on the relationship that I was in. But the thing is, a pattern you repeat in one area of your life repeats in them all. And essentially, I decided that I was no longer investing into relationships that were not reciprocal to me. This ended up with me breaking up with my ex-boyfriend and then quitting my job. But also, I actually cut off one of my friends. We're friends now, so don't worry. I love that girl with my whole heart. When I was cutting her off, I was so upset because I know she's not a bad person. It was just the fact that I made a promise to myself that I was not investing into relationships that were not investing into me or that were not reciprocal. And so I tried to have a hard conversation with her, and she beat around the bush 3 different times. And so I think I made a post on Threads about no longer wanting people in my life that can't have hard conversations, because if we can't have hard conversations, how strong is our relationship? You do not have a strong relationship if you cannot have healthy conversations. And I also saw a post on Threads today that said half of what healthy relationships are is being able to say what you feel without the other person getting defensive. That's literally it. But why do people get defensive is because they have a protective mechanism. Essentially, can understand that people have a hard time with confrontation because they've never experienced healthy confrontation. But for me, if someone apologizes to me and literally never does whatever it is I'm upset about again, they will never hear a word out of my mouth again. I'm not someone that's going to hold something over your head, knock on wood, because I feel like every time I say I'm not this person, life presents me with a situation like, babe, that can definitely be you. Yeah, I cut her off because she wasn't having a hard conversation. And then there was one time she texted me again, and I explained my whole spiel about like wanting to have a tough conversation with her, and she was like, you know what, you're right. And I knew it. She's such a, like, we have this like weird thing where we just understand each other on a certain level. And it wasn't even the fact that I was mad or upset with her, it was the fact that I made a promise to myself. I think part of having healthy relationships as well is understanding that we're human beings and we're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And we should be able to extend grace to one another without needing to like villainize each other. It's weird because we learn these protective mechanisms in order for us to feel safe, but we don't actually feel safe in them at all. Yeah, I think this also, there's something to be said about our protective mechanisms came from love being conditional. And so on whatever way you've experienced conditional love, you've now placed conditions on receiving, whether that's receiving love, receiving support, receiving money. So going back to being yourself, there's these perceived consequences on what it means or what will happen if you show up as yourself. Because when you try to show up as yourself previously, maybe you were punished, rejected, ostracized. So that's where we develop these protective mechanisms. And you will not understand, you'll really start to understand, I should say, how other people are protecting themselves once you realize the ways in which you have protected yourself. It's like now you can read on somebody that they're protecting themselves or they're wearing a mask. And I don't want to like say wearing a mask in like a judgmental way, because most people don't even realize that they're doing it. It's so subconscious that they don't realize they're doing it. And so until life presents you a situation where you kind of have to have an identity crisis, do you realize, wait, this is not actually me, and why was I doing these things? And now actually I'm not aligned with this anymore. I think I said this before, but when your identity changes, all the relationships attached to it have to go. So many people talk about becoming your highest self. I'm like, in order to really become your highest self, you have to stop doing every protective mechanism that you've done before. It can't come with. Your highest self doesn't have the protective mechanisms it does right now. It's like new characters, new storyline, new you. And it feels like a death of the old self.